Hi, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I am Coach Sherry, and I invite you now, if you're not yet part of this team, to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so that when I do upload a video or go live, you will be notified. If you enjoyed the content of this channel and of this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. So today is day 27 of 60. I am going to do lives for 60 days, and so far I've done 27. Today's my 27th one, and I am just so proud of remaining on track with that and just doing my best, coming on here. As you can see from the title, what we'll be talking about is this, that, and the other. And that's something I typically will say when there's just a lot going on and you don't even know where to begin. So you just like, you know what, it's this, that, and the other. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and the other. So I always have extremely busy weeks. And today I really just shut it all the way down, just trying to, relax, recharge, recruit. Hey, Slasher Chick. Thank you. Thank you. Listen, I don't think I said maybe 50 words today because I have just been so busy over these past few weeks, and things are not going to really slow down for me until around July-ish. So whenever I can, especially on the weekends, I just try to shut it all the way down. I meant to come live earlier. I thought I was going to maybe do something and take you along with me, but I didn't. I just needed to just relax. And this past week has been a lot, starting with the passing of my aunt and just kind of going over that, processing it, and just being so grateful that I was obedient to what was put into my spirit, which was to take my dad last weekend to Baltimore. Now, the week prior to, I was extremely busy. I was out of town at a conference, and at that conference I had to speak on two panels. One was presentation style, and the other was questions and answers. And then, of course, because it was a conference and it was around my industry, not necessarily, particular type of business. It was all different types of businesses, but just what we do within that industry. Just lots of people coming up and having conversations. So I did a lot of talking the week before last, of course, last weekend when I saw my cousins, and a lot of just traveling, and just did not get a chance to get back on balance because I jumped right in for this week. And, it was just a lot going on. Thank you, Slasher Chick. And how did your hair turn out when you went into the braiding place? Were they ready for you? I hope they were. I can't wait to see your new style. So, the passing of my aunt just was like an emotional drain. Just the circle of life is never easy, but again, life goes on. So I definitely, since high school, I want to say, I have come to respect life and death. I know that we all have that dash. We have that start date and that end date, and what we do in the middle, which is that dash, is what really matters. And so when someone, uh, you know, meets their end date, um, what I feel what's important for families and friends to do is to reflect on how they lived within that dash. It's definitely sad because their presence here on earth, physical presence, is no longer here. However, their spirit, their soul is still here, and it's within all those that they've impacted. And so that's what I kind of lean on when I have a loved one that passed away. I typically don't allow it to pause me all the way down to the point of confusion or isolation, or just being not being able to move forward, and I think that's something that we all need to strive to do, because so many people go they just go off the deep end. They do things that may impact them here on earth. It might impact their careers, their business, their relationships, just by their actions from having received news of a loved one passing on. And I say that I think I started feeling this way in terms of being coming to grips and the realization of life and death in high school, because I remember it was high school when I started to say, none of us are going to get out of this one alive. And when I started saying that, I can't remember where I first heard that, but when I started saying it, it was like, you know what, that is such a true thing. And so we have to know that at some point, no matter how hard or how tight we hold on to something, that our grip is going to slip away from our grip. And I remember my daughter was on the homecoming court one year in college, my center child that went to North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride. I'm an Aggie Pride mom. And the king of that homecoming court, his dad and mom, they spoke. And the father, he said, you're born looking like your relatives, your father, your mother. You're born looking like someone in your family, a loved one, but you die looking like how you lived. And when my aunt passed away, and when I spoke to her daughter, one of her daughters, she was telling me how beautiful her mother looked at the end. And that's because the life that she lived was so wonderful. And that's all that we can all strive to do, is to live a life that is so impactful, so positive, so high energy, so much of an example, until when we die, we will have that peace, that we will all be so beautiful, so handsome. And so that's encouraging and inspiring. It's not sad. It's, you know what? That's her legacy. So because she's lived her life that way, that definitely has inspired me. And I think I mentioned this before, that when I was much, much younger, around the age of 10, and just being observant and looking how my aunts moved around and dealt with different things, I always viewed them as being these amazingly nice women. And I was just so in awe of that. And at that young age, I said, when I grow up, I hope I'm as nice as they are. And I'm still, listen, I'm still a work in progress, but that's a good goal to have for sure. And so Slasher Chick 3 hours later. Wait, so they weren't able to get you in? That is so wild. Yes. Focusing on good memories and how grateful you are to have them. Definitely. Hi, Mrs. Newton's Big Family, Big Noise. How are you doing? I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that all of you are here. And Slasher Chick and Mrs. Newton's Big Family, Big Noise, if you don't know each other, I highly recommend you check each other out. I really enjoyed the tea party that you had shared with on your channel, Mrs. Newton's Big Family, Big Noise. And I think those are some remarkable memories that you are creating with your daughters. And I know they had a good time, and those are going to be those remember when memories. I think that's a great idea, that whoever did it in your community at the library. I think that was a great idea, and more communities need to look into doing something like that, because going to tea parties, dressing up, and just etiquette alone, being in that type of environment and in those types of clothes is becoming a rare thing. So I think that's really important, something we should not lose. It looked like you had a lot of fun for sure. I'm glad that you were able to share that. Yes. So, Slasher Chick, I'm sorry you weren't able to get your hair done. I know you said you did not want to have to, deal with your natural hair this week. But it's going to be so amazing when you get it done. Oh my goodness, though. Do they take appointments besides on that day? Because maybe next time you'll have to just make an appointment like a few days before. I just can't imagine them being that busy. Or was everyone getting micro braids or something? That just is so crazy to me. And you saying that you reached your weight threshold at 3 hours? Yes. 3 hours is a very long time. Very long time. That's incredible. Now I see why my daughters braid their own hair, even though it takes them forever. They still, I mean, their hair, the way they do it is so beautiful. They know how to do knotless braids and, um, boho braids and just really beautiful. Maybe I'll share a picture or something of one of their braids, but they do a great job. So last week also, just trying to rest. And because I was so busy out and about professionally last week, it was challenging to get home in a timely manner where I could just relax. So I felt like I was just on green light the whole week until Friday, which was yesterday. And that's why, I decided today to shut it all the way down. Last week, I also spoke at the Goodwill Trade School University at their graduation. And that was kind of unexpected, but not at the same time, and when you are speaking, especially when you are that keynote speaker, especially at a graduation, you definitely want to say something that's going to be inspiring and have them lead the charge, something that they can take away and say, because of this graduation, I am better and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And so it wasn't emotional for me, but it was emotional to see the families and how impactful that was. And I think it was just a lot of different emotions last week, be it, sad for my aunt, happy for the graduates, and then, just things going on throughout the day. So that was part of the this, that, and the other for last week. How do I find the speaking engagements? So I am very involved with my community. I have a lot of external partners to that I do a lot of events with, like roundtable discussions, meetings, conferences. I'm very inclusive with everything that I do. I invite them in so that they can be exposed to things that I have going on as well. And built up some great relationships and networks. And because of that, I'm considered or looked at as an SME. And so they invite me to come in. For the conference, it was that one was an invitation. They were like, these are some topics we have, and we think that what you do will be a great fit, for both panels. So we really would love for you to be, involved in that. And then for other conferences, like national conferences, I will check the schedule. And if it's not too late, submit a proposal, seeing what type of topics they're going to have, what type of workshops, what are some of um, the items that they want people to, learn more about. And if I have experience in any of those areas, then I'll submit a proposal where I'll you have to usually give an outline of what your topic would be about, what how your workshop will flow. Sometimes you might have to include a PowerPoint, but usually it's just an outline, and you submit it. And for me, every time I've submitted a presentation proposal, they've been accepted. So I've spoken at in Las Vegas, Sacramento, and Seattle, I think. Definitely see. Wait, was it Seattle? Seattle, um, Raleigh, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia. So different places. And the only reason why I don't think this year I've submitted any. I wanted to submit one for the White House. You remember Slasher Chick when TCHBCU TV was on and she was talking about it? Do you remember? And I had her come up onto the platform, and we were talking about the HBCU White House event that's going to happen in Philadelphia in September, I believe. Well, the deadline that she had mentioned for the proposal had passed, but at my conference in Winston-Salem, I met someone that submitted a proposal, and she said but I'm saying when her proposal was accepted, she asked if I would mind to be part of her panel. So, um, and do they always come to you? Yeah, they do. In many cases, they do. I'm going to be speaking in Charlotte uh, at the end of May. And actually, it's a conflict because I have two panels I was invited to be on at the same event. And it's a workshop, so they have many different time slots, but these two panels are at the same time slot. And both of the organizers were trying to, switch the time slots around so I can be on both panels. 3 weeks ago, the week before, yeah, 3 weeks ago, I spoke at a convention for streetcar. It was an international conference for streetcars, and they wanted to know more about apprenticeships. So I was invited to speak to that as well. So it's putting yourself out there and being a resource for other people as well. There's a what you do, a lot of people want to know how to do it. They may already have established organizations or businesses that you may partner with, and if that's the case, when you share what you do, that's going to positively impact their business. They'll always consider you for things moving forward. Sometimes I think in business, people get selfish and they don't like to share their knowledge. They're afraid that someone's going to do it bigger and better than they are. And you know what? So be it. But that's on them. No one will do it exactly how you do it, and that's the difference. You have the secret sauce for what you do. So yes, but you met someone that you'll be speaking with. Yes, I did. Yep. And she already submitted that proposal since I missed the deadline. I mean, that right there that's grace. Yes, I'm claiming it. Mhm. Yeah, they're all different. Some of them deal with utilities, some of them deal with just like the state um apprenticeships. Some of them deal with like the industry specifics so far has been with utilities and transportation. Another will be um, like workforce development related or career coaching related national conferences. And when you speak at national conferences, especially, your name and bio is all up in the program. So then people in the future, even if they don't make it to your particular session, they still have your information, and they reach out. And so that also transfers into articles. So I've written a lot of regional and national articles that have been published, and it comes from maybe someone did hear me at a conference or saw my bio and they're like, you know what, our publication is looking for an article on X, Y, and Z. Do you think that your point of view can be used for that? And then that's how you write an article. I never say no to stuff like that. Also, in addition to conferences or speaking engagements and articles, also being invited to be on podcasts. So there are organizations that, maybe on their front page of their websites, and many of these organizations are either the ones that I've been on are either federal or state in terms of, what they do. And they'll invite me to be on a podcast. It'll be a question answer session. And then that will live on their website. And I've done one as far as San Francisco, California, and I did that one prior to COVID, and my podcast is still on their site. So people will still kind of connect with me from that too. So it's kind of like leaving breadcrumbs everywhere you go, and there's someone there that is interested and they pick them up and then they reach out. I see Bucks and Floors and stuff is in the building. How are you doing? It's great to see you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, for sure. Slasher Chick, there's room at the table for everyone. And anyone can do it. Some people have a fear of doing it. Some people try and jump too soon. I recommend, especially if you are trying to present at conferences, to truly be that SME when you go on that stage, because oftentimes you're not just presenting, you're also answering questions, and you want to be able to effectively and fully answer those questions. I love questions. When I'm on stage, first of all, you give me a microphone and it's a wrap anyway. I love it to be on a stage with a microphone. And it's interesting because around 2013, 2014, when I was doing a fellowship through AmeriCorps, and the program director periodically, it was a 2-year assignment. And hold on. And the program director periodically would, have one-on-one meetings with us and ask, what were your next steps? What were you thinking about doing? And at the time, because we were in a Title I middle school, many people were going into education. But for me, I really was there because I wanted to see if what I did for adult learners, because after my mom passed away, I became an adjunct at the community college in Southern Virginia, and that school had 50 different locations all around the southern part of Virginia. And I was doing a lot of different types of training. I did it for workforce development and continuing education. And all of the things were customized curriculum. So I developed everything that I did. And you know what? That's something else I wanted to talk about. And I see Delightful Dawn is in the building. Hello, how are you? Great to see you this evening. This is about this, that, and the other. And so listen, there's Tuber Chat Connect and Grow is a channel, and he is very supportive of content creators. But he also has another channel, which is his name, Kevin K. He lives in Canada, but he is a dynamic person. And I was listening to him today. He was driving back to Niagara Falls. That's where he lives. And it was a great conversation. And we were talking about, basically customer service and cold calling, and being able to feel comfortable doing that. And where did you start doing that? Like, there was some point where many of us had to do that, be it selling Girl Scout cookies, selling Cutco knives, or working for your family business, or all different types of things. If you played on a sports team, maybe you had to sell raffle tickets, or any of those things where you may not have felt comfortable. Sometimes you were talking to people you just didn't know, but that is a valuable, valuable skill to have. And I feel like, you know, troop leaders, coaches for youth, and all of that, they really need to let them know that yes, you're trying to do this fundraiser, but you are going to learn a skill that's going to help you all for the rest of your life. And so I'm saying all of this because yes, thank you, Dawn. Shout out to the 5 in the building. 6 now, I see. And you know what? And I'm gonna claim this too. This is something that Carter's Eat was saying. And I listen, I appreciate the 150 people that's in this building or who are watching this on replay. I appreciate your support. Thank you for checking out this video. um Carter's Eat was saying that there was another content creator that does that or did that. She and her husband, that's what is her name? Maria's, I forget her channel's name right now. But they in the beginning would say, "Oh, welcome in everybody. It's good to see we have 160 people in the chat. Thank you for being here. Oh, 150 people are viewing us now. Thank you, thank you." And they was just manifesting that, and eventually now they have always like 200 and something people in their lives. So I'm gonna start saying that. I know it's a small number, but in real life I'm saying thank you to the 150 that are checking me out right now. Thank you. So I was saying all that regarding the cold calling, customer service, being able to speak confidently in public and all of that, because first of all, you know, when my mother was ill and I was caring for her, I literally could not do anything for more than an hour and a half to 2 hours out of her sight because of, all the things she had going on. Was on a ventilator, and literally I was her primary caregiver, taking care of everything. And so I just remember looking up into the sky, or up in the ceiling. Really, I was looking beyond the sky. And one day, and I said, God, like, is this what my world is coming to? It's just caring for my mom, looking after my children, have my husband there. But it's like, it was just a different normal. I was used to just being out and about, and doing my business and everything. So that's when he was like, no, you can do this. And I promise y'all, like, I should be a subject matter expert in WebEx, because I literally did a WebEx career coaching, life coaching for women all over the world. I never met them in person, even to this day. And one I'm still really in constant contact with. And that was back in 2008, 2009. And so then when my mom passed, and we weren't sure if we were going to stay in Virginia, we were going to move back to Charlotte, we were going to go to Northern Virginia, Maryland. We weren't sure. I started to go to different businesses and nonprofits, because in Charlotte, I did a lot of marketing coaching for businesses and nonprofits. And so I was letting them know, like, this is what I have to offer. And so I got a lot of contracts doing that. And then I would do a lunch and learn at the Chamber of Commerce, because I joined the Chamber of Commerce. And it's a small country town, but I joined the Chamber of Commerce, and I started hosting lunch and learns, and I developed a book. And at that time, Facebook was really the end all be all. We're talking 2010 at this point. And so I created this workbook on how to market your business on Facebook. And when I would have my workshops, I'd have the book, and it was a workbook, and it was spiral bound. And I would always let everyone that came, the lunch and learns were free, but I would have them come, and I would let them, hold on to the book while I did the training. And I would tell them at the beginning that the book is not free. And at the end of the training, if they saw value in it, they could purchase it. And I was selling them for $25. And so everybody would always buy it at the end, because they saw value in it. They would have pen and paper, but they would end up writing in it or whatever to capture their notes. So they would be like, no, I love it. So I started doing that. Well, it was one Chamber of Commerce meeting, and it was the governor of Virginia came to this meeting, and we had such a challenge with medical care for my mother. It did not matter how much money we had. I mean, I was telling nurses, I will pay you $100 an hour to help me with my mother. And they would not. It was crazy. And my parents had amazing insurance, and they just would not do it. And my mother was eligible for it, but they would not do it because of her ventilator. And that's just, I know y'all are like, what are you talking about? I felt like it was 1957. That's how backwards it was. So at any rate, the governor was at this luncheon, and I stood up. I had a question, and I was going to ask him, like, what are you going to do about your, your residents that live in parts of this state that are eligible for good care but aren't receiving it? But before I asked the question, I gave my, basically, back then we used to call it the elevator pitch, about who I am. I'm Sherry, boom, boom, boom. This is what I do, this, that, and the other, marketing, this, that, and the other, boom, boom, whatever. And then I went into the question. And after the luncheon, I had, like, literally a long line of people waiting to ask me questions about the care for my mother. And at that time, she had already passed, but they were just, because they had similar stories, and they thought they were the only one. Now, I had already been to the state capitol and all that. Even when my mother was alive, I would take her to fight for, because it was a right that we had but weren't given. And so all the people online were asking me about the results and what was going on and this, that, and the other. Um, See, that's why the name of this live is This, That, and the Other. That's basically what it is. And so there was this woman at the back of the line, and she was really tall and stately and stoic. And so after the line started to wind down, she came up and she introduced herself as the director of workforce development and continuing education at that particular community college. And she opened up a brochure and, like, of course offerings. And she said, I heard what you said, and you have extensive experience in marketing and in coaching. And she opened up that course offering pamphlet and said, what can you teach? I was like, um, excuse you, like, how I never said I was a teacher in that way. And at that time, I had never taught formally, really. And she said, no, like, seriously, what, like, these are the things that we have that we offer in our program. And I mean, you could add to it if you like, but what can you teach? And I was like, it was about four different courses on there that I knew about that I was like, oh, I could do that, that, and yeah. And she was like, okay, um, we pay $40 an hour. And if that's okay with you, our classes are, these classes are 4 hours each. And so if you are okay with that, then we would like, I would draft up the contract and boom, boom. And I was like, yeah, sure. Again, this is 2010. And so she drafted up the contract, and I became the adjunct for the school. And it was incredible. And let me tell you, I learned so much in doing that. First of all, I didn't realize, I'm thinking they have the content, but I had to, everything I said I could teach, I literally had to develop the curriculum for it. Not only develop the curriculum, but make sure that when I was teaching it, it could last up to 4 hours. So I had to make sure it was interactive. But this is just how I like to learn. So I basically created how I like to learn. And it was really good. I did a lot of different things. I did rapid response. So when a company was closing, they needed people to come and train up, skill up their employees. For instance, I don't know if y'all remember the DC sniper, and he was put into a prison in Virginia. Well, that prison closed. That's where he was, I think, where, they actually ended his life. But that prison closed, and but before it closed, if you lay off 100 or more employees, you have to. It's the WARN Act. You have to provide some type of training and career support for your staff. So they had 300 employees, and they worked all different shifts. So for 2 weeks straight, three sessions, so that each session was 4 hours. I skilled up the warden, nurses, maintenance, facility maintenance people, corrections officers, all the, you think, whoever that works in a prison, they all came through my class. And it was really a sad thing to see, because many of them have been working for that corrections facility for 20, 30 years and were expecting to retire, and they all lived relatively close and hadn't worked anywhere else. And now, because it was closing, they had to find um another job, another career, really. And so I did that. They also, which I found really interesting, there was a hospital, and the OBGYN department was closing. So I went to train up the doctors and the nurses and support staff for that section. And I'm like, people have babies all the time. Like, how are they closing this? That's so crazy to me. Um, and then Rolls-Royce, the car Rolls-Royce, wanted to build a plant in that part of Virginia. And because it's very rural, so there's a lot of land. And we were so excited, like, oh, shoot, it's going to bring a lot of jobs and great opportunities for the community. And so with workforce development, we needed to kind of figure out what kind of work they do and what type of training we could possibly provide. But the executives for Rolls-Royce wanted to come out and see. They had already cased it out in terms of real estate, so they already knew that part. But we just figured, oh, they must just want to see the facility for like training purposes or whatever. And so the the workforce development director asked me to be part of that process. So because I have background in real estate and development and everything and business. And so they are more academia. So they was like, Sherry, be on this team to help us when the executives come through. So I did. And when the executives came, y'all, oh my goodness. And this is when I knew that not only that area had a problem, but our country had a problem. So we're thinking they just want to do one more, look over of the property or whatever. But when they came, they said we want to go to the elementary school and talk to the guidance counselors for the third and fourth grade. So we was like, what? Okay. And so we took them to the school and they asked to see the test scores. And when they saw the test scores, they said, we can't build our plant here because there's not going to be a workforce educated enough to do our work. And that was it. It was a yeah, no. And they went to another location in Virginia, like on the other side of Richmond, I believe, closer to Northern Virginia. Eventually, I want to say maybe right before COVID, the plant ended up closing. But y'all, they looked as far back as third and fourth grade test scores. And they were like, no. But I was trying to bring this all back full circle, talking about Kevin K and the importance of having confidence and customer service and being comfortable with cold calls and just speaking about what you have to offer, who you are, because you never know how that kind of posture will propel you. I see it in my kids every day, with my daughter in real estate, with my son as an educator, with my youngest and her just reaching out to recruiters on her own and being able to sell herself enough for them to grant her interviews. And, you know, just that is a skill. And so for me, standing up, talking to the governor of Virginia, which was nothing to me, because growing up, I mean, I used to go work, working on mayor campaigns and such. Our group would always go to the governor's mansion for tea back in the day in New Jersey. So that I'm not intimidated by people's, position or anything, but a lot of people are, but I'm not. But it's still, you never know where that will take you. So when you're talking to someone again, and I tell people this now all the time, and that's something I even told the graduates last week. Every day you are on an interview. You don't know who is listening to you, who is seeing how you move, and a lot of times it's not the person that you see that's in front of you, that's within your vision. It's who they know. So someone may hear something you've said, see how you move, how you operate, how reliable you are, how much integrity you have, how collaborative you are, and someone in their circle that's more elevated than they are in position may come to them and say, man, if I could just meet someone who could do X, Y, and Z, that's all I need. And they could basically write their own check. And then that person would say, you know what, there's this woman, slasher chick, and I've seen her on YouTube and she is pretty thorough, like on the fly. She's able to pull up content and work it through, da da da. Like, you just never know. And that's how it works. So when I was teaching again in Virginia, the adult learners would say, wow, Miss Sherry, I wish I would have known this when I was younger. If I was younger and knew this, I wouldn't have had the experience I've had. And I mean, my classes were with people that were just entering the workforce, people that had a job, any job. I had people that were lawyers that were saying, I don't even want to do lawyer work anymore, but what else can I do? I had a whole like hodgepodge of people in my classes, trying to figure out what their next move would be. And so it got me to thinking, like, will this work? So when we moved back to Charlotte, let me see, it was Black Enterprise and Bill and Melinda Gates. Now I don't think Bill and Melinda are still married, but they had this foundation with Black Enterprise. If y'all could put a number 8 in the chat if you remember Black Enterprise. I think I believe they still are a publication, but they're probably an electronic like um I know we used to always get it or delivered to us, but I don't think that's how they do it anymore. But at any rate, they had this event and it was called 2020 Initiative. And I went, and that was in 2012. We moved back to Charlotte in 2012. And I was doing consulting and I was trying to figure out the lay of the land because it's so interesting, especially if you move away from a robust city. If you go back, oh, it still grows with or without you. And you'll be like, wait a minute, this wasn't over here, or this wasn't the moves that were being made back then. So it took me a while to get back on balance and figure out the lay of the land. And so because when I left, I'm telling you, oof, well, anyway, I'm not telling y'all. It's just a that's a whole nother story. But at any rate, um, they had this event, and I, I don't even know why. Well, it was God, because if you don't know why you did something, it's God. So I had brought with me my bio and my resume just in case, like I just felt like I needed both. I don't know. And so I was in the audience and they had these panels and they were talking about the workforce in 2020 and the challenges we were going to have and all this. But they had people on there that probably maybe signed checks but never really did the work. They don't know the people, they so far removed, and so they were talking more theory than practical. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what, I'm supposed to be on that stage. This is ridiculous. They don't even know. Like, they're talking about what they read. They don't even know. They haven't really been in the trenches with the people, helping them really prepare for that next move and getting skilled up for that next job or career, or preparing them for future opportunities. They never did that. They're not talking from experience. They talking about they doing citations. They writing a paper. I was like, that's, to me personally, that's not as effective. And so when it was over, what's his name? Earl Graves. That's the guy, his son, Earl Graves Jr., the son from Black Enterprise. Right. They didn't have the experience. For sure. So Earl Graves Jr. was there, and I went up to him, after the event, and I said, I'm supposed to be on that stage. And he was like, what? Hello, excuse me? Like, what's your name? Like, you were. I was like, yeah, I was supposed to be on that stage because I actually know what's really going on. And I started like running it down. And he was like, oh. And I said, I have my resume and my bio, whichever you choose. And he said, oh, like, I guess he wasn't used first of all, he probably was like, how she get up on, like, how she roll up on me like this? And so I'm telling you, I have audacity. I really do. So I said, which one do you want? The resume or the bio or both? Because I need, like, the next one, I need to be there. And he was like, well, this is the last one that we're doing in Charlotte. But yes, give me both, and I'm gonna make sure my assistant has it. So maybe like 2 days later, his assistant called me and was like, Mr. Graves, I believe that's his name, gave me your information. And there's this opportunity with this nonprofit through AmeriCorps where you can go to Title I schools, and it looks like you have your own businesses. So they are looking for people in the community with influence to go into the schools and teach the students for like 90 minutes a week, whatever business, or whatever your skill is. So I was like, huh, that sounds interesting. What is it called? So she told me what it was called, and I looked it up, and I noticed that you could do that if you're invited, or you can be a fellow. And as a fellow, you would be with the students every day and have more of an impact. and it was through AmeriCorps. And so I never, at that point, I've heard of Peace Corps, but I wasn't familiar with AmeriCorps. And I enrolled, I submitted an application because I said, I want to be with them every day. I don't want to just be with them 90 minutes a week. And I got accepted. I think I probably was like the oldest person at that time. I was in my early 40s to, be in that program. But I'm going to promise you, I want to say, because we had to go to Boston for 2 weeks for training to, on teaching and classroom management, behavior management, and all of that. And I know for me and what I've learned, I don't do well teaching somebody else's stuff. Like, I have too much experience to just say, "Hey, 1 plus 1 is 2" to you. I have to show you what you can do with that two. And so I've ended up becoming successful with it, but I realized I needed to touch the parents. I needed, if there was going to be a change made, a positive change for the future, yeah, you do need to teach the children, but it's more impactful if you teach their parents. It's like if you know someone and you get their children, and every time you see their children, their clothes are filthy, and they stay with you over the weekend, but every time they stay with you, you have to buy them new clothes. And then when you see them again, their clothes, those same new clothes, are filthy again. So to me, it's not about, you teaching them how to bathe when they're with you on the weekend and taking them shopping and showing them, letting them choose clothes. No, it's about teaching their parents how to wash clothes, teaching their parents how to fold and put away clothes, and how to, keep their children clean properly. So I was like, I need to get to the parents. And um lo and behold, so then, okay, I was starting to tell you about the microphone and how I don't know, being on the stage is just something special to me. And so the program manager of AmeriCorps, of that program, periodically, like I started saying, would have meetings with us one on one, and would and, and so also I was over the like pre-apprenticeship piece, where we did have businesses, the different banks, engineers, all different types of professionals that came in to teach, and entrepreneurs to teach those students a skill, exposing them to careers that maybe be of interest to them. And then we would have a huge event at the end. We called it wow, because everybody was wowed about it, and they would demonstrate the things that they learned. And it was just remarkable to see these students, that many of them didn't even read on grade level. They read on third grade level, or BR, which is before kindergarten, to see them develop a catapult, or to build a water filter system, or a vacuum cleaner, or develop an app, or develop a business plan and have the actual business up and running, and selling their items at the event, finding a vendor to develop their business. I mean, it was just so remarkable. But at any rate, he would ask, what do you want to do after this? And so I think a lot of people would say, oh, I want to do nonprofit or community work, or um, teach or whatever. But I would be like, I want to be on stage and speaking. And and he would look at me like, what? I said, yeah, I want to be on stage, and you know, I want to speak. And he could not, that made no sense to him. He couldn't understand. Well, and it didn't have to make sense to him. But he said, well, what will you speak about, Sherry? I said, I don't know, but that's what I'm going to do. And he would just look at me like, wow, you really, you know, kind of far fetched out there. And so it wasn't until, and since then, I have spoken on many stages in front of many different types of people. But that moment of me always saying to him that I wanted to be on stage speaking did not hit me until, I want to say, September, October, maybe September, October of last year, of 2023, when I was at the convention center, and I was on stage speaking to 1,000 high school students. And like, it just hit me at that moment, maybe because they were young adults or young, and when I was telling him this, I was working with young people. And so it was like full circle for me. And it brought tears to my eyes because it was like, I'm doing what I said I was going to do. Wow. So yeah. But I feel like I went out on a tangent talking about this, that, and the other. I'm sorry. Um, Again, I appreciate the 150 people that are in this live. Thank you for your support and coming through. So then, when you are busy in your day to day, in your week to week, I know for me, it's important to have people around me that I trust. And I'm telling you, sometimes you almost have to marry and raise the people that you trust the most. For instance, my husband, I never had to worry about him being sideways with me or our relationship, being disrespectful with other people, men, women, or otherwise, that would impact our relationship. I never had to worry about my children being disrespectful or talking out the side of their mouth to me. And I really appreciate that. And that goes without it being like a constant reminder, like, don't do this, don't do that. I'm gonna tell you, when I first started dating my husband, I want to say, and this is with when I would start dating anyone, I would always say a deal breaker for me is someone that is not faithful, because I can't worry about the next person. So if you feel that there's another person that you need to be with, then do that. Like, let me go and go and do that. Don't try to do me and them. And I'm gonna tell you, if you put those types of expectations or boundaries in any type of relationship that you're in, I feel that you it makes it a safe place. It really does. And I have never in 29 years had to worry about that. But I recognize that not everyone has that level of integrity or level of trustworthiness. And it's almost like those kids where if you're not constantly telling them to do their homework, they won't do it. Even though you've been telling them for years and years, they won't do it. But again, when I tell you, my kids would do their homework without being told, and I appreciate that. Because in life, you get busy sometimes where you can't stay up on what somebody else has to do, be it your spouse, your significant other, your children, your colleagues, your peers, your whomever. Sometimes you get so busy, they just have to do what they're supposed to do. And you have to, that just has to how it has to be. And yeah, so I don't know. Last week was just very interesting to me. Let's just put it that way. So, you for me, I love trust. I adore trust. I really respect, appreciate, value trust. And the type of trust I really, really appreciate is the kind of trust that you absolutely believe. Meaning, and I've told my students this, especially when I was doing my fellowship. I'm telling you, I used to close my door and I would say, "All right, this is real talk with me. Like, we out here. Nothing's gonna leave this room. Everything is what's true for you. There's no judgment. Boom, boom." And I would do that with the whole class. Like, we a family right now. We are a family. I don't know what you do with the other teachers, what you have going on outside this room, but in this room right here, oh, it's trust. And it really was. But I really appreciate when someone tells me something and I can look at them and know that what they're saying is true. And I don't have to second guess it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. And I know it is what it is. And if I can't fully do that, if it's like some gray areas, it makes things really uncomfortable. And I'm telling you, things aren't always perfect, in life, with be it personal or professional, but that's why it's important to be transparent, to be authentic. And, especially when it's, when especially in all areas, but I'm just talking about professionally, it's really important because, everybody has a position. And if you are not playing your position, the team may not win. And you can't just say you're playing a position, but not really playing that position, because at the end, when it's time to play the game, you're gonna not do your best. And then it'll be like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I should have done. No, because you should have been doing the practice the whole time, like you said you were. And I'm just gonna leave that like right there. So for next week, coming up, this week coming up, or next week, I don't know. How do you say it? For Monday is considered what, next week? It's so weird because it's just the day after tomorrow. But next week, I really am going to have to preserve myself. My aunt's services are going to be Saturday in Baltimore. And, I was speaking to my dad, and and he, he's 85, he'll be 86 in May, and that's a blessing right there. And I get it, he doesn't have a lot going on. I mean, he did his presentation last week, and he keeps busy, trust. But, he doesn't have a lot of big deadlines and projects really that he's working on. And so his big things are at the next big event. And so the next big event is my aunt's services next Saturday. So I had called him to let him know, the date, the time and the location and everything. And so he was like, "Oh, so when are you going to come? Are you going to come Friday, or y'all going to come, like, how are we going to do this?" And y'all, I know it's a week away, and, I really need to have the plans laid out, but I can't think that far in advance. I just can't. One of my daughters who's in Atlanta, she's going to be flying home so we can all go together. And right now she's thinking, should I fly in Thursday or Friday? This is her last week of exams. And then she needs to go back to Atlanta on Sunday because it's senior week that following week, because her graduation is that following weekend. And I'm just like, I do better when I can just understand what's happening right at this moment. Because at this moment, I'm here with you. I'm here talking about this, that, and the other. And that's what keeps me balanced and grounded. Because even thinking ahead, like I just did, talking about what is coming up, that like that was a lot for me just now. So I'm just gonna stay right here. Just know that I have a lot going on next week. Big projects I'm working on. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Workday, but uploading tons of information for that platform. And so listen, we are here, and I hope everyone had a wonderful Saturday. Slasher Chick, I am sorry you weren't able to get your braids done. I know that. I hope you all can go and check out Mrs. Newton's video, Big Family, Big Noise, where she had taken her daughters to the tea party that was at their community library. I thought that was so dope. Bucks, Flaws, and Stuff. I hope you had a great weekend so far. Tomorrow's the last day. Delightful Dawn. I hope you had a good weekend too. Did anybody have anything that they're doing or um, going to be doing? We still have tonight and tomorrow, and I know I'm in for the night for sure. But there's always tomorrow. I do want to get out and do some things, get some vitamin D. The weather here has been ebbs and flows, and it's been interesting because typically when it's 70 plus degrees here in Charlotte, it's hot. It's like a really nice warm day. But I'm finding that 70-degree weather, it still requires a jacket or something. So I don't know what's going on. It's still like a little chill in the air for it to be spring. We've been in spring for a while now, for over a month. So I don't know, because we're almost in May. And I know there's places where, by May, you can kind of start getting into the ocean. So I wouldn't dare get into the ocean right now because it's been cold, kind of chilly, not cold, cold, but chilly for such a long time. I know growing up in New Jersey, we used to always go to the Jersey Shore around Labor Day weekend because it would take that long for the ocean to get warm. All through the summer, and even then, it still was kind of had a little bite to it. But I love Destin, Florida, so I'm looking forward to going there or somewhere similar this summer. The ocean just gives me life. It's like electricity. So I love it. But at any rate, y'all, that was this, that, and the other. And I hope that you all enjoyed it. It has been day 27 of 60 for me going live. And I'm just proud that have been sticking with it. And I plan to continue sticking with it. Really, going live is about hitting that go live button, and just going for it. If you are not a content creator, you might want to consider. And if you have a channel, you know, there's a lot that you have to say, and there's someone out there that needs to hear it. And it's just really, it's your legacy. This is your breadcrumbs that you're leaving behind, and people will pick them up and take them, and they will be filled. They may pick up enough to make a whole slice of bread, who knows? But definitely, I encourage you all to consider putting content out here. Don't just be in the bushes. Don't just be that watcher. And especially if you're that person that is saying, oh, I had that experience, or I could have done that better. If you could do it better, come on. I hope you can. That's what it's all about. All right. Thanks for coming by, stopping by, and remember to practice. Practice so hard that when you get in the game to play, you will always play to win. It's been my pleasure sharing with you this evening. I am Coach Sherry.